In the early hours of June 13, 2025, Israel executed Operation Rising Lion, involving massive airstrikes across Iranian territory, prompting immediate and forceful Iranian retaliation. This marks the first large-scale direct Israeli attack on Iran since the Iran-Iraq War, targeting the heart of Iran's nuclear program and military leadership. What began as covert operations has exploded into open warfare, with over 200 Israeli aircraft striking more than 100 Iranian sites. At approximately 2 a.m. local time, Israeli F-35I stealth fighters crossed into Iranian airspace, marking the beginning of Operation Rising Lion. The coordinated assault involved over 200 aircraft, conducting 5 waves of strikes using more than 330 precision munitions. Prime Minister Netanyahu announced the operation in a televised address. Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. The strikes were the culmination of years of intelligence gathering by Mossad, military intelligence, and the Israeli Air Force working in unprecedented coordination. Israeli officials justified the preemptive action by claiming Iran was within months, possibly weeks, of producing nuclear weapons, with enough enriched uranium stockpiled for up to 15 nuclear devices. Operation Rising Lion struck at Iran's most sensitive installations with surgical precision. The primary target was the Natanz nuclear enrichment facility in Isfahan province, home to thousands of centrifuges producing weapons-grade uranium. Explosions also rocked the Fordo underground facility, Kondab nuclear site, and research installations in Tehran. Beyond nuclear infrastructure, Israeli forces targeted missile production facilities, air defense systems, and the private residences of senior military commanders. Intelligence sources reveal that Mossad had pre-positioned precision weapons and surveillance equipment inside Iran over months of preparation. The most shocking casualties were Iran's top military leadership. Revolutionary Guard commander Hossein Salami was killed, along with Armed Forces Chief Mohammad Bagheri. Nuclear scientists Faridun Abbasi Davani and Mohammad Mehdi Tehranchi were also eliminated. According to Israeli military sources, F-35 stealth fighters operated without radar reflectors, penetrating Iran's air defenses undetected. The precision targeting of leadership residences in Tehran's diplomatic quarter demonstrates unprecedented intelligence penetration of Iranian security. The human toll became clear as dawn broke over Tehran. Iranian state media reported at least 78 people killed and 329 injured, though independent verification remains difficult. Massive fires engulfed the Natanz facility, with satellite imagery showing significant damage to critical centrifuge halls housing Iran's most advanced uranium enrichment equipment. Residential buildings in Tehran's military district were reduced to rubble, their facades blown out by precision strikes. Eyewitnesses described terrifying scenes. The explosions shook our entire neighborhood. We could see flames shooting hundreds of feet into the air, said one Tehran resident. Iranian airspace was immediately closed, stranding commercial flights and triggering emergency protocols across the region. The strikes decimated Iran's integrated air defense network, destroying multiple S-300 surface-to-air missile batteries that had protected nuclear sites. Military analysts estimate that Iran's nuclear program has been set back by at least 2 years, with critical centrifuge cascades destroyed and key scientific personnel eliminated. The psychological impact may prove equally devastating. This marked the first time since 1979 that a foreign military had successfully penetrated Iran's heartland. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei called it a day of infamy, while promising bitter and painful retaliation against Israel. Iran's response came swiftly and forcefully. Within hours of the Israeli strikes, Tehran launched Operation True Promise 3, a massive missile and drone barrage targeting Israeli population centers. Over 100 drones and dozens of ballistic missiles streaked toward Israel, triggering air raid sirens from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Israeli defense systems, including the Iron Dome and Arrow interceptors, worked overtime to neutralize the incoming threats. Explosions lit up the Tel Aviv skyline as interceptors engaged Iranian missiles, while civilians huddled in bomb shelters across the country. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi declared the Israeli strikes a declaration of war, while military officials promised the attacks would continue until Israel faced a dark night ahead. Despite the dramatic nature of Iran's retaliation, early assessments suggest Israeli defenses successfully intercepted most incoming projectiles, with no reported Israeli fatalities. However, the exchange represents a dangerous escalation, with both nations now engaged in direct military confrontation for the first time. Iranian officials acknowledged that their response capabilities had been significantly degraded by the Israeli strikes, limiting their ability to sustain prolonged retaliation. Global markets reacted immediately to the escalation. Oil prices surged 6 to 7% as traders feared disruption to Middle Eastern energy supplies, while major stock indices tumbled worldwide. Gold and the U.S. dollar strengthened as investors fled to safe haven assets. President Trump, initially caught off guard by Israel's unilateral action, quickly rallied behind the operation while maintaining the U.S. played no direct role. The Iranians were hit 10 times worse than they thought they would be, Trump told Fox News, while warning Iran to make a deal before there is nothing left. Secretary of State Marco Rubio emphasized that Israel advised the U.S. but acted unilaterally. European leaders called for immediate de-escalation, with the EU issuing emergency statements urging both sides to step back from the brink. The UN Security Council scheduled an emergency session as global powers scrambled to prevent regional war. Regional allies showed mixed reactions. Saudi Arabia and the UAE privately welcomed the degradation of Iranian capabilities, while publicly calling for restraint. Turkey condemned the Israeli action, while Egypt closed its airspace to military flights. Financial analysts noted that despite the volatility, markets showed relative calm compared to previous Middle East crises, suggesting confidence in Israel's military superiority and Iran's weakened position. Operation Rising Lion represents a fundamental shift in Middle Eastern geopolitics. Israel's successful decapitation strategy has severely weakened Iran's nuclear ambitions and military command structure, potentially buying years before Tehran can rebuild its capabilities. The integration of advanced intelligence, stealth technology, and precision weapons demonstrates Israel's overwhelming technological advantage. However, this tactical success carries enormous strategic risks. Iran's axis of resistance, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, and militia groups across Iraq and Syria, may activate in solidarity, opening multiple fronts against Israel. Maritime shipping through the Strait of Hormuz faces potential disruption, threatening global energy supplies. The collapse of U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations seems certain, eliminating diplomatic solutions and pushing Tehran toward more desperate measures. Nuclear experts warn that Iran may accelerate weapons development using hidden facilities, making future Israeli intelligence gathering more difficult. Regional powers now face stark choices: align with either Israel or Iran, potentially fracturing long-standing alliances. The operation may have prevented an Iranian nuclear weapon in the short term, but it has also eliminated moderate voices in Tehran, empowering hardliners who favor confrontation over negotiation. The next phase will determine whether this becomes a limited surgical operation or the opening act of a broader regional war. Israel appears committed to continuing operations until Iran's nuclear threat is completely neutralized. Netanyahu's declaration that strikes will continue for as many days as it takes suggests a sustained campaign rather than a one-time surgical strike. Iran faces a critical decision: escalate through proxy forces risking broader conflict, or accept the degradation of its nuclear program and military capabilities. Early indicators suggest Tehran is mobilizing Hezbollah and other proxies while rebuilding its command structure. The U.S. finds itself managing competing pressures, supporting Israel's security while preventing regional war that could draw American forces into direct conflict. Watch for proxy responses from Lebanon, where Hezbollah may open a northern front, and Yemen, where Houthis could target shipping lanes. Iraq and Syria remain potential flashpoints as Iranian-backed militias consider retaliation. The next 72 hours will be critical in determining whether diplomatic efforts can contain this crisis or if the Middle East spirals into its most dangerous confrontation in decades. Operation Rising Lion has fundamentally altered the strategic balance in the Middle East. Israel's bold gambit may have set back Iran's nuclear ambitions by years, but it has also opened Pandora's box of regional warfare. As both nations mobilize their allies and the world watches nervously, one question remains. Will this deter Iranian aggression or accelerate a wider, where that could reshape the region forever? What do you think comes next? Share your analysis in the comments below and subscribe for continued coverage of this developing crisis.